Welcome to The Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Damion Lupo, founder of the eQRP company, which has helped thousands achieve a better retirement, a retirement that puts you in control, not Wall Street. He is also the author of the eQRP book and host of the Financial Underdogs podcast, which is dedicated to uncovering that which the traditional financial system ignores. Welcome to the show, Damion.
George, great to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. And we did have you in 2022. Gave me a great book. Definitely enjoyed the book. Think very highly of your company. And before we launch into all of that deep stuff, just want to ask you, when you're at a cocktail party and people ask you, what do you do? How do you answer?
I disrupt things and give people more freedom.
Good. I love it. So, Damion, you've started over 50 companies, and I would have to say the origin story of the eQRP company has got to be the most touching. So can you tell us what led up to the creation of this company?
Yeah, it's interesting how we have this plan and then life gets in the way and there's no straight line to what we're really here to do. Back in the 2000s, about 25 years ago, I started doing a bunch of real estate and made a ton of money, thought I was God's gift to everything. And in 2008, ended up losing $25 million, went negative 5 million and had to start over. And it was really interesting because when I looked back, and I lost everything. I lost all the money, lost my house, my dog, my girlfriend. It was like my life was a country song. I probably should have moved to Nashville. And instead, I sat there and sucked my thumb for a little while. And then I started thinking about what my purpose was. And it really was it here to make more money, or because after you make $1 million, then you make 2. It's sometimes you get sucked into this whole never enough concept. And I was doing that. And it was really a hedonistic approach to my ego's drive on my life. And instead, what I said was, well, probably I needed to do some work on me. Started doing work on me. And this was like in 2010. And I started working. And a couple of years later, I had done a ton of work, kind of realized where I was at and that I really wanted to teach and I wanted to help people get more freedom. And then about the same time in 2012, I got a call from my dad, and it turned out he had cancer. And so about a year and a half later, I got another call from him, and he said, well, it's stage 4, which meant he had weeks to live. So I flew up to Alaska, and I met with him and sat down. And one of the things he said to me, if there's one thing I remember from my dad, was the one line he said at a coffee shop up in Alaska. He said, there were so many things that I wanted to do. And it burned into my soul that he was talking about regret, and there was nothing that he could do because he was out of time. And the reason that he had not done so many things, he was scared that he didn't have the resources. So he was in a hyper scarcity, hyper security state. And I think that that's where most people are. And I thought, wow. So after we both broke down and realized this was one of our last conversations, I went back and started thinking, okay, given that my soul and my heart is wanting to help people create freedom using my experiences, I bet there's a lot more people like my dad that have really played by the rules. He was in the military. He was a university professor, and he did all these things that you're supposed to do, like playing by the rules in the system. And Wall Street was his financial tool, and it never worked. It worked for them, just not for him. He was like the food, if you will. They harvested him, and I thought there's got to be a better way. And that's where I started poking around in the retirement system and realized that there were ways for people to not just be beholden to the system, but really where they could take control of their retirement accounts. And eQRP was born out of that pain from seeing my father and really most people that I knew just sort of hoping that they would have enough when they retired. And I thought, wow, there's a lot of people that need this information. And so built a company around it. And that's where it started.
Right. And that's kind of what our society teaches us, contribute to that 401k till you're 65. And then, hopefully you have the time, you have the resources to do. But so to take it a step further, what do we do to flip the script?
So once people realize that they have the option of taking their 401ks and their IRAs and all these retirement accounts, and they don't have to be stuck in Wall Street, there's this opportunity to control it, to not only pick what investments, but pick the entire asset classes. And people don't realize when they hear self-directed, they often think, oh, I can pick my own stocks. But the reality is you don't even have to be in that system. You can say, I don't trust Wall Street, which is probably a smart thing because Wall Street's in business to harvest you. It's not there to make you money. So what happens is when people say, well, I want something different, they just don't know what that is. And what they do is they have the option to invest in all the cool stuff out there that really has the opportunity to create wealth. And I'm talking about real estate, I'm talking about small businesses, I'm talking about Bitcoin or gold, really anything you can think about investing in or you're curious in or you have a passion for or that you know. Because quite frankly, most people have no idea how to look at S&P 500 companies. They have no idea how to analyze them. But there's usually we all have a specialty in something. And if we were able to invest in that thing, it's likely, much more likely, that we would do well. And so the eQRP just gives people that choice, that option to invest in the things that we understand that we could probably do a lot better than just investing in an index fund with.
Right. So it really is all about freedom. As you put it on your website, having a locked down retirement is overrated.
Yeah, having a lockdown is basically being in financial prison. We call it Wall Street jail. And you're really you have shackles on. So my mission in life is to break people's financial shackles and free them from financial bondage. Having your retirement account in some IRA or 401k and just hoping that it grows and it doesn't get wiped out in the next correction, or that you don't get feed to death. Here's a crazy stat, George, that John Bogle said. So if you don't know who John Bogle is, those are watching, listening, he was the founder of Vanguard, passed away recently. And he said there's something inherently wrong in a system where the investor puts up all the money and at the end, after fees and taxes, ends up with about 20% of the gains. And Wall Street didn't like him saying that. But I mean, if you're going to listen to somebody, that's the guy you should listen to. Right. And he was just irritated at how the system was hurting people. And so this is a way for you to say, okay, I want to actually try to keep most of my money and not just the crumbs, because that's what happens. Most people just end up with the crumbs.
Right. It reminds me of the story of the client who's talking to the financial advisor, looking at all the yachts of the other financial advisors. Well, where are the client's yachts?
It's true. There's another one that, God, years ago, I remember seeing something like Wall Street is the only place where people in Rolls Royce go in and they take their Rolls Royce in to get advice from people that took the subway to work. And it's true. Like it's crazy to me. But when you think about financial advisors, whether they're selling stocks or mutual funds or life insurance, they're not really advising, they're selling. And I love salespeople, but let's be honest about most people that are giving you the quote unquote advice. They're selling you on a way for them to maintain a lifestyle and giving you these different boxes or buckets that they've been told they can tell you about legally, that this is aggressive, this is a times banded thing because you're 52 or whatever, and we're going to put you in this stack of stocks and this stack of bonds. So really they are selling you. And if you understand that, you realize, wow, maybe I should start advising myself. Maybe I should start advocating for myself. And that's a lot of what eQRP was built on, was giving people that coaching, that mentoring, and then empowering them, not saying you should invest in anything, saying here are all the things you can invest in. Here's some stuff that you should probably go learn. And it's that the whole team is focused on educating, not selling something. They're literally there to do what the advisors are supposed to be, but truly it's inverted, because the advisors that are, have all the credentials with all the initials after their name, they're really not advising most of the time. Most of the time, they're just selling whatever their company wants them to sell.
Yeah, sad but true. Well, to get back to the freedom, and that's really what you're talking about, the flip side of where you don't have the freedom when you're going with a standard financial advisor. I know you mentioned a lot of things that you can invest in through an eQRP, like, for example, Bitcoin, gold, real estate. You can still do stocks and bonds. What are some of the other things that people can do?
Well, a lot of people like to do things that have really consistent cash flow. So they'll invest in notes, different borrowing. So a lot of times people go, oh, that's bonds. So if you invest in a bond or a treasury, you might make 3, 4, 5%. Whereas if you're doing private lending, or you're lending your money out to somebody that maybe is building something, or for whatever reason, like you can lend for just about anything, then you could easily be making 8, 10, 12, 15%, which is 2, 3, 4 times as much. And when you start using tools inside of an eQRP, like the Roth tool, you do this tax-free. And so that's this transformational piece with what eQRP has to offer, getting you to a place where your tax rate is 0. And people go, well, I don't like the taxes are going up and they're probably going to go up higher. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if you're at 0. So the idea is get your tax rate to 0 and you really don't care what Congress does. because you're not going to pay taxes. And that's the option on the table when you have a team that's coaching you in the right direction for you, not just for their fees.
Right. And one of the things that sets your company apart from others is that you're actually going way out of your way to make sure that people are introduced to potential investment opportunities. Can you tell us a little bit more about your network and your community, and what are some of the advantages? What are some of the things that they can become exposed to?
Well, one of the neat things that we do, since we don't manage money, so we give people the tools, we give them the vehicle, if you will, and then they're basically able to do what they want to do. So it allows us to give them options. We can say, okay, here's some things that you can invest in. So what we've done is we've built something called the deal marketplace, and this is a place where our community can share their deals, and people that are in that network can share their stuff they're doing, and then the other community members can look at it and say, oh, I'm really curious about this, and they can go invest if they want, or use it to learn. IRAs are not allowed to do that. Legally, you cannot hold custody of money and start offering deals. It's prohibited by the IRS and the Department of Labor. So we're in a unique spot because we're not managing money. We're not financial advisors. We don't have those limitations. So it's really fun for us to be able to have our community investing with each other and sharing their stuff and empowering everybody, so that it's not just them saying, okay, I got to go find a house to go flip. They literally are able to look at all these different deals that our other community members that have eQRPs that are part of this network have. And it's very intimate. It's like in Main Street investing with Main Street, which I think changes and kind of flips the script and takes the power away from Wall Street and puts it into people's own hands.
Right. So we talked a lot about the things you can invest in and how you can help people, but in terms of clients, so who can you help? Do you have to have an existing 401k or what? How do you get into an eQRP?
Yeah, so whether you have one, like you have an old employer and you want to roll that money over, you can do that. You can take old IRAs and you can move those things over. So those are tax-free. There's no penalty or tax to move them over. And also, if you have any type of self-employment income, you can contribute that money. I mean, in some cases, people can put $70,000 per person. We've had families that have put over $250,000 per year into their retirement account. It's actually this incredible tax. And a lot of people will go buy cars. They buy a 6,000-pound car to try to get a tax deduction, but then they watch their investment, if you will, decrease in value every year. So may not be the best investment, even though you feel like, hey, I'm getting a tax deduction. In this case, you get a tax deduction with something, putting your money into the eQRP, and then you can grow it and invest it. So any type of self-employment income, consulting, side hustle, really almost anything that you can come up with. If you've got 1099 income or Schedule C income, or if you have a small business with employees, that also works. We're the only company that's set up to where if you have employees, you can also do this, which is really cool. It doesn't limit you. So really, the answer is if you have a social security number, if you're an American, you have the ability to do this.
Cool. So if you have say a 401k and an IRA, is there an advantage to taking the 401k and rolling it over with you?
The advantage is actually to consolidate and simplify your life and put everything in one place. Because like you said earlier, you can do all this stuff. You can buy the stocks, the mutual funds, the bonds. You're not limited by moving things into an eQRP. You just add a lot more options. So we have a lot of people that have IRAs and 401ks, and typically they'll move everything into their eQRP. They'll roll it all over. And then that way they have one place and they can navigate and it's not so confusing. It's kind of crazy. Sometimes people will show up and they have 15 different 401ks from previous employers. Not really sure how that happens, that you have that many jobs, but it's actually pretty common. So you can move all that stuff and simplify your life.
Right. Well, look, when I asked your three greatest strengths, you mentioned vision, execution, and pain acceptance. Can we take the third?
Yes, this is one of those interesting things about being an entrepreneur. Pain acceptance, and so I heard Joe Rogan talk about something recently that really clicked for me. I bought a cold plunge not too long ago, and he said something that I said, yeah, that's me too. That when you choose to go into pain, and the first thing you do in the morning is get into an ice bath, it literally sets the rest of the day up to where everything is easy because that first thing that you chose was really painful. And I said, yeah, that's great. Most people are afraid of pain. They don't like it. They get freaked out if they see a needle and they give blood and they pass out. I mean, I know because that was me. But then you start getting used to it, and then you start really becoming tolerable. It's kind of like if you go take boxing lessons. Most people don't want to be hit in the face, but then when you get used to it, you're like, oh. And so the idea here is how do we all find more pain threshold or a higher pain threshold? I just happen to have practiced making more mistakes than most people will make in 10 lifetimes And you get to the point where you stop worrying about the judgment. And when you lose money or you make a mistake and you get hammered, you say, oh, okay, I don't look at things as I won or I lost. I look at either it worked and I won, or I learned something. And every time, I mean, I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of companies. The reason that the company that I'm working on now, the manufacturing company that we launched a couple of years ago, the reason it's worth $500 million today, and it was a napkin 2 years ago, was because of not only the dozens of companies, more than 50 companies that I've launched and run over the last 25 years, but all the other people that had done similar things, bringing all that pain experience to the table. The pain is where you get the wisdom. And unfortunately, most people that don't have any pain or wisdom, they don't really have a fighting chance on wealth, because even when the opportunity shows up, you're not ready for it. When you've gone through a lot of pain, you're not really worried about not knowing everything. You're not going to hesitate. You go forward because you can endure whatever comes at you. So learning to develop a pain acceptance is one of those key things that unfortunately is required. And I think a lot of people just, they do anything and everything to avoid the pain. And I just sort of weirdly got used to the pain.
Great. And I love your attitude. It reminds me of your mascot for your company. Tell us about the mascot.
So it was interesting because there was this video on YouTube about this honey badger running around, and it was cracking me up. It's been watched I don't know how many billions of times now. I mean that guy's probably gazillionaire just because of all the ad revenue from this video, and probably half of that revenue was from me because I kept clicking on this video, and I died every time. The voiceover on this thing, if you haven't seen it, everybody should watch this thing. So I was watching this honey badger, and it would go out there and it did what the honey badger wanted to do.
Yeah.
It didn't give a flying F. It just went out there and it went after a rattlesnake or a bunch of bees. It's getting stung. It gets stung by a python, and it just takes a nap and then continues eating when it wakes up and eats this thing. It doesn't care what it can take. It'll take on lions and tigers and like literally anything. And I said, okay, what is that all about? This is like the coolest animal ever. At one point, I even thought, would it be cool to have a honey badger and somehow have a live honey? The problem is it'll literally destroy you and your house and everything else. The thing I love about the honey badger, though, is it's totally committed, it's decisive, it's resilient. It has these characteristics that I realized were the same characteristics of our community, the team and all of our members. That's how they are. They commit to something. They're decisive. They're resilient. And I said, wow, this is the perfect animal to represent who we are. So the honey badger is all over everything now.
Yeah, I love it. Well, in a world of snakes, you need to have thick skin. So I also love the honey badger. So I think you mentioned briefly, but not by name, FrameTech. So this is a company that's disrupting the construction world. So tell us about how that's launched and what it's doing.
Yeah, so when you asked me about me, the very beginning, I said I disrupt things, and so disrupting the retirement system. FrameTech came along about 3 years ago, and I looked at it, and at first I said, "There's no way this is possible. This doesn't make any sense." I'd never seen something that was really this good and this interesting, and so I ignored it for about 6 months. And then when I finally dug into it, I flew out to Arizona, and I was living in Alabama. I met with a team, and I sat there at lunch, and I said, "This is incredible. You guys are incredible, and we would love to be a part of this." So we committed to the $40 million they needed and said, "All right, we'll partner with you." So they said, "Thank you." They walked off. They said, "These guys are full of crap. There's no way that that's going to happen." They just met us for lunch. And guess what? We actually followed through and started building this thing. And literally within a couple of weeks, had our land under contract. And here, fast forward 2 years later, our manufacturing plant is almost online. It's built. The machinery is in place, and we start firing things up in a couple of weeks. So we're ahead of schedule. And so FrameTech, what is FrameTech? FrameTech is an innovation in construction. Right now, we have this huge problem in housing, meaning there's like millions and millions of units that are not there. This has been going on for forever. We don't build enough to even satisfy current demand, let alone the pent-up demand. And a lot of that is because after 2008, a lot of the supply chains just disappeared. And truly, nobody innovates in this space. The last innovation was, I kid you not, 70 years ago, 1954, the nail gun was invented. So here we are, 70 years later, and it's almost all the same techniques. People are swinging hammers in the field, making studs that are not quite 16 inches on center, and they're warped, and it's a mess. So what FrameTech said was that the innovators said, we have a way to automate the building of all these pieces, all the walls, and floors, and trusses inside of a manufacturing plant, and do it a lot faster. And we believe we can do it with very little waste. So what happens in a normal house is it takes a couple of months to frame it. In this whole process of framing, and we're talking like a 2,000 square foot house, couple months and you end up with like 3 dumpsters full of wood. And that's because when you have a big piece of, like, you need a 12.5-foot wall, you got to use a 14-foot board, and you cut it off and you have all this waste. So our team, our partners that had been in this space of truss building for like 50 years. I mean, before I was born, these guys were building these trusses. They had this idea of automating stuff and really creating a system where you wouldn't have that waste and you could speed the whole thing up. So the outcome, what we're able to do is take that same 2,000 square foot house, and instead of 2 months, we're able to do the entire process from us taking the designs from somebody and having a framed house in 2 weeks. So we've cut down the time for doing this by 75 to 80%. And instead of 3 dumpsters full of wood, we have half a trash can full of sawdust and little corner cuts. So it's 99% less waste and about 4 times faster. And we do this because we're able to use a lot of robotics, and we're using this technology that's patented inside of our manufacturing plant. So the whole country, probably a lot of the world, is paying attention, watching, saying, this is exciting and scary for us because the industry hasn't really changed. We're coming in and it's going to completely disrupt the construction industry because we can build a lot more efficiently, not like 2 or 5 or 10%, but like hundreds of percent better in terms of our impact on the planet and the ability to speed things up, which we desperately need.
Right. Yeah. I mean, using algorithms is just like using MapQuest or Google to find the quickest route. Computers can try more potential combinations than you could imagine and do it all in milliseconds. Definitely impressed with the presentation. Saw that I think it was about 2 years ago that I saw that presentation. And I love investing in early stage companies. It's fascinating. Now, it's not exactly like Shark Tank, but I think it's as exciting as Shark Tank. So anything you'd like to say about investing in early stage companies?
Well, I think early stage companies, you get to really participate in a different way. Energetically, you're part of the fuel, the core. You're not. It's like when you invest in Amazon now, you're not really part of the fuel. You're just investing. You're throwing money. It doesn't matter whether you do it or not. The people that invested the $40 million in FrameTech, and we have a second plant that's underway, and investors are investing in that now. There's an option to do that. They get to be part of the origin story. We had them about a month ago. We had 100 investors that came out to Arizona, and we got to show them the plant, the thing that they were a part of. So they got to touch this thing and see, wow, I'm actually participating in the future that's going to be a better future for my kids because I put my fuel into this thing. So I think it's incredibly useful to be able to be a part of that. It feels real, it's tangible.
Yeah.
And I think it's a different energy than just throw your money into a portfolio and hoping it all works out. You can actually see it and you can touch it and you can talk to people. Right. And it's palpable. So I think for everybody, it's a useful part of a portfolio, because look, a lot of these things fail. And that's the other reality. Like it's not early stage stuff, especially when you don't have something proven. I mean, you might make 10 or 100 or 1,000 times your money, but you're probably 99 out of 100 are going to fail. So you really want to know about the people that are executing. Like, do these people have what it takes? The idea is only about 1% of the value of the deal. It's the team that executes the thing where all the value is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about investing in early stage companies, you're not just investing in the real economy, you're investing in innovation and the sort of people that you meet in that community. It's like your community of honey badgers. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's really fascinating. Most people, like we had a lot of these investors that had never shaken hands with anybody they'd invested with. And to be able to do that and to walk in the plant and week after week see these new videos that on LinkedIn, you can see videos of our chief operating officer going out there and he's showing machinery. And it's like this, it's 111,000 feet of machinery and all this stuff that's coming to life. And I mean, that's a very different experience. It makes you really, like if you read The Richest Man of Babylon, you start realizing, oh, wow, if I do this thing, if I start investing, you're really going to want to do more of it because it feels so good. You feel like, wow, this actually has meaning.
Yeah, that's so true. And I feel like, investing, I like angel investing or venture capital, same idea. It's like we all just really want to play. Latest venture capital book I've been reading, wish I could recall the title, but it doesn't matter. It talks about the importance of prototypes because, it's real. When you see the prototype, doesn't matter if it's underfeatured, doesn't matter if it crashes, you get an idea of what actually is going on. So I would say that's the real part of Shark Tank, is that when you have a company that has that product market fit, when you have a prototype, I mean, yeah, those venture capitalists, angel investors, they love they love to see that because that's really the reason why we all do it. Well, anyway, I think we got to wrap with that. And I want to try something new. Never done this before, but I know you're unflappable. So I'd like to try some quick hits here, getting to know you. So let's say, Damion, you're headed to a deserted island. The island's very modern, however, and it's wired with a sound system and great speakers. So what album would you take with you? You can only take
What
one.
album?
Yeah.
Good Lord. I think it would probably be something that was Baroque based, classical music. The reason being, there's a reason it's classical. It's classic. Like you can, and it stirs your mind. If I'm on an island, I want to have my mind stimulated. I don't want it beaten to death by whatever Jay-Z is rapping or whatever the current thing is. I want something. I want something that's gonna keep my mind going, and it's been around for hundreds of years. It's always going to be something that's going to be interesting, and my mind's always going to appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's great because I have to say, I know this thing was staged, but another famous YouTube video, a guy who plays amazing classical music and has, somebody just out of the crowd say, "Can you play Bach's Toccata and Fugue in A minor?" And but it's amazing though, and it's beautiful, and it really does enrich people's lives to hear something like that on the street. And of course, somebody with a violin comes in and full counterpoint. It's beautiful. Anyway, if you could jump into a pool of anything, what would it be?
A pool of anything. I think it would be a giant pool of banana pudding.
That's good. I don't even know how to follow it up, but that is the best answer I could possibly have expected. All right. If you could have I should have known better. If you could have a wild animal for a pet, which one would you pick?
I mean, if you could actually have a domesticated honey badger, you have to have a domesticated honey badger.
Actually, you know what? I did write that out. Actually, no, I was prepared for that. How did I know you were going to say honey badger? Okay, never mind. That was a setup. Even I forget some of my last lines. All right, I think that's enough. Okay, let's head into the real rapid fire round now. You ready for the 7?
You bet.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so if you could be known for only one thing, what would it be?
Caring after everybody else was done caring.
What's the greatest lesson in leadership you've learned as an entrepreneur?
You're not going to be loved, and I think there's more value in being respected because you're willing to hold true to your vision and your values.
What personal characteristic has been most pivotal to your success?
Resiliency after getting beaten and bloodied for decades. The willingness to and the practice of continuing to get up even after Mike Tyson keeps punching me in the face and saying, "I'll take it another round. Let's go."
Yeah, someone's about to get punched by the face by Mike Tyson. I don't really follow sports, but that's an interesting story. Okay. Here. Oh, sorry. Random question. Yeah. All right. Tell me when to stop cutting the deck. I've got a completely random question, something worse than the last 3.
All right, go for it.
All right. If you could be any athlete for a single game, who would you choose?
If I could be any athlete, I think it would be Jesse Owens. And the reason being that was I remember racing as a kid in the Jesse Owens games, and he was such a powerful, just a role model and somebody that was willing to endure a lot of pain to do what he was put here on this planet for. And so I think just that there's something remarkable about that. And there's only one Jesse Owens. It's not going to be me, but I think that he's an incredible person.
Love it. What is one tip or trick that investors or entrepreneurs can implement in their business today?
Go find people that have already gone down the road, and then literally embed yourself with them in some way, serve them, and become invaluable to them, and then learn by just being around them. I think people try to learn it by doing it themselves instead of going out there and absorbing what other people have to teach you just because of who they are and what they do automatically.
Can you name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader and as an entrepreneur, and tell us why?
The book Mastery, because the life is this continual process. There's no end line. It's when you're dead, there might be an end line, but Mastery is about that process of going deeper into the things that matter for you to become more of a master, but never to attain mastery, obtain it. It's really about the process of going there.
All right, can you send us out with a quote to help forge our listeners as leaders and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, there's no loss. There's nothing when you're out in the wild and you're doing the thing, whatever that is for you. There's only opportunities to grow and to learn from the things. It's not about winning and losing. It's about winning or learning. And when you start realizing that that's what it is, then you embrace the learn. That's when you start growing and launching into a place that really is why you're here on planet Earth.
All right, amazing. Well, I got to say, Damion, this has been the interview that's had it all. We talked about gold, Bitcoin, real estate, private equity, angel investing, and also had some great belly laughs. Like, seriously, I don't think I laughed that hard on the air yet. So we just have to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to get in touch with you. So if you want to get in touch with Damion Lupo, email, website, carrier pigeon, smoke signals, what's the best way to reach out?
Check out frametech.com, frametech.com. Visit me there. Find me on LinkedIn, and eQRP and all that stuff is available. Happy to talk with you about it. Just poke around, whatever floats your boat, and get interested down. Please reach out to me though. I love hearing people that have seen this and said, I want to know more.
All right, thank you so much. Can't wait to release this episode. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks, George.